Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, Get Your Hauling Operations Under Control, Understand What's Going On in Operations. Today, before we get started, I just want to let you know a couple of things. We will have a few minutes for questions at the end of the session, so you can feel free to just type in your sessions in the GoToWebinar control panel. As we're going through the presentation, if you have one, just go ahead and fill that out and send it, and we'll take the questions at the end. We will also be sending a replay recording of this session to all registrants and attendees, so you should receive that in your inbox tomorrow sometime, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'm going to introduce our two speakers today. First, we have Dave Savell. He's the General Manager of OpenTicket, the solution that you will hear more about today. Now, as General Manager, he is responsible for all aspects of the OpenTicket digital field ticketing solution. Dave is a 33-year veteran of the oil and gas technology industry. In 2000, Dave left Halliburton and co-founded Digital Oilfield, running U.S. operations from its inception, and was on hand for the first deployments of OpenInvoice. In 2006, he returned to Halliburton in the role of Technical Business Line Director for Drilling. Dave is a member of SPE and is a mechanical engineering graduate from the University of Western Ontario. And then we've got Don Hofer. He's our Solutions Director for Business Automation. As our Solutions Director, he is responsible for supporting the sales channel as well as the technical interface between customers and the Business Automation Product Development Organization at Enverus. He has more than 29 years of working in the oil and gas industry. In 2004, he joined Digital Oilfield, which was the company that developed OpenInvoice. Don led the technical support and implementation teams and then transitioned to an account manager when ADP acquired Digital Oilfield. He is a petroleum engineering graduate from New Mexico Tech. With that, Dave, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Susie, and welcome to everyone on the webinar. So we'll take you through what you'll be seeing over the next half hour, 45 minutes. Essentially, we'll have, Susie just finished the introductions. We'll have a safety moment. We'll take a look at OpenTicket. And as part of this presentation, I know that in the webinar audience, we have a combination of experienced OpenTicket users with people that are probably new to the technology. So what we'll try to do is make sure that there are elements in the presentation that will be of interest to both sides. And then Don will give an OpenTicket demo, and as Susie mentioned, we'll open it up for Q&A after the presentation. So we'll start with a safety moment. And this safety moment falls into the category of just because you can doesn't mean you should. So these new scooters showed up this past summer in several cities, and this is actually Calgary. And what we have here is a mother behind a father hanging on to the child as the whole family scoots through downtown Calgary. And really the message here is that you shouldn't abandon common sense when you are introduced to new technology. So new technology like a scooter shows up, that's great, but use common sense when using it. And frankly, the same is true really of the Enverus business automation products. There are certain things that they can do and they can do very well. And if you use common sense related to understanding how they work and applying them to your business, you're far more likely to actually get a satisfactory outcome. So we'll talk about field tickets. Field tickets have been part of the oil industry really since the inception. And operators and service providers both see the benefits of digitalization. And they both realize that they need to collaborate to make digital field tickets a reality. No single operator or supplier can digitalize the whole ecosystem. So it doesn't matter if you're ExxonMobil or if you're Schlumberger. Individually, an organization can't necessarily do it. What you have to have is an organization like Enverus that actually provides a network and actually access to that technology to both operators and suppliers. So what is OpenTicket? OpenTicket is a cloud-based collaborative platform for operators and service providers to generate, review, and approve digital field tickets. What you have in front of you here is a really simplistic workflow process diagram in terms of the interaction between operator and service provider. Essentially, an operator places an order for goods or services. The service provider dispatches those resources. The work is undertaken, or the goods are delivered out at the work site or the rig site. A field ticket is generated by the supplier, and that ticket is in turn approved by the operator. That approved ticket is used as a basis for the invoice by the service provider, and the field ticket and invoice are checked by the operator as part of the invoice process, and then ultimately the supplier is paid. So when you say, well, what is OpenTicket? OpenTicket is fundamentally that process in the oblong. Essentially, it's creating a digital field ticket and then having that field ticket approved between the service company and the operator. And in terms of how it interacts with OpenInvoice, OpenInvoice is the create invoice and process invoice components of that workflow. So you can see how tightly OpenTicket and OpenInvoice interact. And where there really is true value, or where there's the most value, is where you do have collaboration and interaction between OpenTicket and OpenInvoice. So we look at innovation in oil and gas document processing. We look to the invoice, and looking at the history of that digitalization, maybe it can give us some clues associated with where we should focus next. So back in 2000, before the advent of digital invoicing systems like OpenInvoice, the whole process was manual. So the service provider would generate a paper field ticket, generate a paper invoice, the coding and routing of the invoice on the operator side, the verification of the field ticket, pricing verification, invoice approval, all of that was all via paper, and then ultimately loading it up to the ERP. In 2000, OpenInvoice showed up, and by 2010, it was really the de facto standard for North American upstream oil and gas companies. So the invoice generation was all digital, and the code routing of the invoice, the pricing verification, invoice approval, and loading to the ERP was all digital as well. But you still see you had this paper field ticket, which is actually still part of the process. So where we see the opportunity is next, get rid of the paper field tickets. So the challenge with paper field tickets are, we've broken it out into 5 major areas. So first is safety. So suppliers spend a lot of time on the road tracking down company men to have paper tickets signed. So what'll often happen, especially with LOE or production operations, is that when work is done at unmanned sites, the service company will actually collect field tickets, gather them all up when they hit 50 or 100 or whatever weekly amount. They'll drive and try and track down the company man from that company to actually have the field ticket signed. So there's a lot of time spent on the road, which is frankly needless. And if we can digitalize it, we'll actually have an opportunity to rationalize that. Processing time. So the invoice approvers, even with digital invoices, still have to reference scanned PDF paper tickets to ensure that the scope and quantity match between the field ticket and invoice. On the analytics side, field tickets contain a tremendous amount of valuable operation data with no way to easily access it. Availability, operations personnel wait days or even weeks before finding out what was done at unmanned locations. Those things, so things such as figuring out what actually happened operationally or coming up with accurate accruals becomes a real challenge in that type of situation. And finally, this was a little bit of a surprise, is that fraud, unintentional, but oftentimes intentional overbilling, is difficult to detect with high volume, low dollar services. So these are the challenges with paper tickets, and we think with OpenTicket we've actually resolved all of these. For this presentation, we'll focus on 3 things: processing time, analytics, and fraud. So first, on processing time. The service to invoice approval can often take well in excess of 40 days, which really impacts supplier relationships and makes it an inefficient process for your organization. So if there's a way to actually digitalize that field ticket, you can really take advantage of that. But we also found out there's some really interesting nuances along the way. So for both processing time and analytics, what we're talking about here will let you really have a better handle on what's going on operationally, especially within your fluid hauling processes. So the operational awareness, as part of this presentation, we'll talk about custom ticket types, fluid load maximums, saltwater disposal ticket duplicate rejection, super tickets, and audit analytics. So we'll talk first about the custom ticket types. And this is a feature of OpenTicket which has not yet been released, but will be shortly. And right now within the standard OpenTicket, there are three types of tickets. There's general, there's hauling, and labor, equipment, and material. As you see on this screen snapshot, what operating companies will be able to do is actually set up their own ticket types. So in this case, you might have a freshwater hauling ticket type, and you'll have a disposal hauling for produced water. And maybe the hauling ticket for the Permian is going to differ from the one that you have in the Bakken, because the business processes are actually different. So these custom ticket types will let the operator more easily manage their overall processes and make sure that they adhere to the standard business rules associated with each one of their business units. Next is ticket validations. And again, this is something that came from a number of our customers that have been using hundreds of thousands of fluid hauling tickets and finding that there are certain things that if they could, they would like to see managed. So number one is actually volume limits. So right now, you can now set up minimum and maximums in terms of volumes of fluid hauled. So in this case here, the volume must be between 50 to 150 barrels. It's 160. So basically the service company cannot enter that volume moving forward. So this will basically ensure that there's not fat fingering basically of the values, and that the values actually make sense. The second item, and again, this is really interesting, is that duplicate disposal ticket validation. And actually this gets towards the issue of potentially overbilling, but just better process understanding. So what happens with an individual water hauler, they'll typically have a book of saltwater disposal tickets. And every time that they dispose of produced water, they will use one of those tickets. So if there's a duplicate, there's a chance that either the supplier misentered that information, or potentially worse is that they're essentially trying to double bill for the same process that was undertaken. Next, we go on to super tickets, and Don will be showing this as part of the demonstration. Actually, we'll be showing all of this, but this is interesting in that this is where, for the high volume, low value tickets, it's much easier to manage, understand, and see where there's potentially issues associated with those tickets. So within a super ticket, tickets from individual suppliers can be essentially grouped together, sorted, analyzed, and figured out, are there issues associated with any one of those tickets? So before I bulk approve this group of tickets, I can figure out if there are any anomalies and actually change them or reject those tickets that don't actually match my expectations. Then on to Audit Analytics. There was a press release put out late last year talking about a joint venture between Concho and Enverus. So Concho had built a technology solution using data from Invoice and OpenTicket to identify fraud and overbilling. And Enverus and Concho will be jointly taking this technology to the E&P market. And this is really interesting because over time, the solution will also evolve to include preventive measures. Right now, it's more of an audit tool, really an after the fact look at potential issues around overbilling. But it will become a preventive tool. So we can essentially prevent field tickets that would be out of tolerance or potentially indicate overbilling from even being authorized. So rather than chasing money after the fact through some type of an audit process and hope that you recover some of it, you can prevent the ticket from actually being authorized and used as a basis for an invoice and stop the money from going out the door in the first place. So Audit Analytics basically analyzes OpenTicket data to detect evidence of overbilling. There's 13 unique rules-based criteria, some such things as drivers and truckloads are greater than 24 hours over multiple tickets, some other issues like that. So what we can do is we can actually analyze that data using the rules-based data and figure out what's actually going on and what groups of suppliers are have issues, and frankly, you can even force rank them based on how often they actually are in are in breach of conditions. Then finally, there's a case management tool to assign investigations to internal personnel. So if you have audit personnel or security personnel, they can be assigned a ticket or a group of tickets to analyze, and then that case can actually be taken from initiation all the way to closure. So in 2019, 2020, now that we've completely digitalized OpenTicket and OpenInvoice, we now have completely digital generate and get approval for field ticket and invoice on the supplier side. The code routing of the invoice, the verifying pricing, approval of invoice, and including matching scope and quantity between field ticket and invoice. All of that is digital. And then finally loading it to the ERP. So you could, in theory, if you're an operator, pay on the ticket or have complete control over when that ticket gets paid. So it potentially gives you more opportunities for early pay discounts. It certainly takes a lot less time within your own organization to go through the process of approving an invoice. So this gives you a lot of opportunity and a lot of flexibility within your back office operations. So in summary, why OpenTicket? As we talked about, safety, leverages mobile internet technologies to minimize travel. Processing time, automated compliance and reconciliation improves relationships by expediting approvals and payments. On the analytics, all ticket information becomes analyzable data. From an availability standpoint, we have this concept of the virtual company man, where essentially your service provider is providing you visibility in terms of activities and costs over your entire region, even if the work is done on unmanned sites. And finally, with fraud, unintentional and intentional overbilling is easily detected and prevented. So OpenTicket is actually doing very well. There's over 60 operators that are currently actively using OpenTicket, and this is just a snapshot of those that are that have implemented and are transacting or at some level of implementation. We cover virtually every basin in North America, with the exception of California and Alaska. And so we're seeing tremendous growth within OpenTicket. Over the past 12 months, we processed close to 1.8 million field tickets, managing 5.6 billion worth of spend. We now have 3,500 suppliers transacting, and we're bringing on board about 150 to 200 suppliers every month. So there's a tremendous growth within OpenTicket, and some of the things that you'll be seeing as part of the demonstration moving forward are based on the feedback that we've had. So with this type of active usage, we're finding out more and more associated with how we can really optimize the technology, and we think that we've shown real progress in terms of capability over the past year, and we are looking forward to continuing to emphasize the growth and capabilities of OpenTicket. So with that, I'll hand it over to Don.
Steve. All right, so now I'm going to be logging into the application and actually going through some highlights of what Dave just showed in the presentation. So let me quickly, this is the OpenInvoice login screen, and I'm going to log in as a supplier to demonstrate a lot of the stuff that we just put in the application or are soon to be putting in. So I'm going to log in here. All right, so those of you who have not seen OpenTicket, this is the supplier's dashboard on OpenTicket. I'll be logging in here in a minute on the operator side to show you that view as well. But basically what we have here are a series of what we call ticket stacks. So I have 5 ticket stacks, and if you think about processing paper tickets, you stack them up into stacks of paper tickets, and then you can organize them based on data on the tickets. So in this case, I've organized based on the supplier, I've organized by status. So I have 395 tickets that are in the submitted status that have out to the operators that haven't been approved. 45 of them have been disputed, 459 have been approved that I haven't invoiced. And I could organize by a company, like my test operator, Permian EMP, or even the saved tickets that I haven't submitted. And I can keep creating different ticket stacks based on that data to suit my workflow. So it's very flexible and easy to get at the tickets that I'm most interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a ticket, and I'm going to show you some of those control mechanisms that we put in to kind of validate the ticket data. There's several ways to create tickets in the system. The most basic way is the one I'm going to show you today, which is logging into our portal and inputting that ticket through the portal. Obviously, if you have suppliers have a ticketing system on their own, they have their own electronic field ticketing system, we can integrate with that. Or as Enverus, we have our own system that suppliers can choose to use to create their tickets and submit through OpenTicket. And then if they have the ability to export a spreadsheet or to create a spreadsheet, we have import straight off of the spreadsheet into OpenTicket. So there's several different ways for suppliers to get tickets in the system. Now I'm going to show you the most basic way, this create ticket. The first thing is, just like the invoice, if you're used to open invoice, we do not allow the duplicate ticket by number. So for that operator, I can only submit a ticket number once. So if I try to submit the same ticket over, it won't let me submit it. I'm going to choose one that's unique. Pick the supplier site that I'm working at, pick the company that I'm ticketing, and there's my permanent EMP. And then the first thing I'm showing you is the custom ticket types. So because I picked permanent EMP, they have a custom ticket type called disposal hauling. Then along with the generic general hauling labor and equipment material, I see this disposal hauling, which is identified as a permanent EMP custom ticket type. And what these custom ticket types allow the operator to do, as Dave mentioned, is put in custom fields that are required, put in standard fields like this disposal hauling ticket. The disposal ticket number and disposal location, so the source and destination, are actually required fields, where the generic hauling, so maybe it's a freshwater hauling ticket, doesn't require those fields. So I can set up unique constraints about those different ticket types. So I'm going to choose the disposal hauling. Everything that's with red with an asterisk is a required field. And so by ticket type, you can determine which fields are actually required. I'm going to pick that. Put my requisitioner, so who ordered the work? Myself. You can put a description, disposal hauling, ticket style. Truck number, driver name, those are required fields. So these are fields that the operator is required, so that I can analyze and run through that analytics tool to see if the same truck was on the same location at the exact same time or worked more than 24 hours with the same driver. There's a lot of different validation checks that you can put in. But the capacity is 130 barrels, and my driver name, PJ Walker. Click next. Let me go ahead and add line. And this is where we get into the control. So I can put in a time, work from 5 a.m. to 11 for this load. What did I do? I did water hauling. Since I have a price agreement, it already priced it out for me. And I'm going to go ahead and accidentally type in a 1200 versus 120. So right away, it doesn't let me move forward. It says my maximum has to be between 50 and 150. So each operator is allowed to put that min and max threshold on. It's not a standard. It's each operator can decide what that min max range should be. I'm going to say this is 130 barrels. So it meets within my min max range, so it allows me to go forward. Charge by volume. Because this is a disposal ticket, also now I see that the disposal ticket number is required. I put that in there. And my disposal location, you now can put in, this is fairly new, valid disposal locations. So if I only allow my haulers to dispose at certain locations, I can add those to a validated list, and they have to select from the list. I have generic saltwater disposal 1, 2, 3. So let's pick one. Payload, and then payload is required, so I'm going to put produced water. This is what I'm hauling. And then if they know the AFE, they can type that in as well. And save. So I'm going along, everything is nice. Go ahead and submit that over to my buyer. And right away it tells me, hey, you've already ticketed that ticket disposal already. So it's warning me before I submit that this ticket number has already been, the disposal ticket number has already been ticketed. So it will require the supplier to update that ticket number before they can go on. Our validation is based on the ticket number and disposal location combination. So for that particular disposal location, I can only have that ticket number one. So if I just make it, and obviously you would want them to attach the actual disposal ticket as backup for this ticket. And submit, and it should let me submit. So let me submit it through. So I'm going to go ahead and log out and log in as the ticket approver. So this will be on the operator side now. If I could spell ticket approver. All right, so just like the supplier side of the application, on the operator side, they can create ticket stacks as well. So I have several different ticket stacks here. The default one is me as a requisitioner. So these are all the tickets the supplier listed me as a requisitioner. So Don Hofer. So I have 109 tickets in that stack. Tickets can be in multiple stacks depending on how you want to create the ticket stack, such as this is the supplier oilfield services that I just created that ticket from. So those 95 tickets, if some of them reference Don Hofer as a requisitioner, would also be in the other stack. I have labor, equipment, material tickets, disposal, disputed tickets. Maybe for a rig, I create a stack, or for a frac crew. There's a number of different ways you can build these stacks to organize the tickets. But one thing I wanted to highlight that Dave went through is another way that we're handling all the high volume, low dollar tickets like water hauling tickets is with the super ticket. So I'm going to go into my super ticket stack, and an admin within each operator can basically build these super ticket rules to say, in this case, from this supplier, Oilfield Services Suite, for this cost center between this date, so a monthly in this case, from February 1st to February 29th, any ticket that's submitted with these different constraints will flow into my super ticket. So I currently have 6 tickets that have been submitted in February that meet this rule, which is supplier and cost center. And if I open that up, it'll give me kind of a highlight of those tickets. So I can see the 6 tickets, if they were compliant on my price book or not. So these were all compliant, all 6. What were they on the tickets? They were for water hauling. The 6 tickets totaled up to 730 barrels. And I have my pricing low, most common, and high. And then how the tickets were coded. So if everything was the way I wanted it, I could then either change the coding, or I could bulk approve them all. So that's how you can efficiently look at the tickets in a summary view, see if everything is correct. You can sort by these columns, maybe by amount, see if they overcharge, if it's all the same thing, and you got a ticket to a different value. You'd want to take a look at that, but it's very quickly, you can look at a series of tickets to see if they're what you want to approve or dispute. I'm going to open up a different example, open up this one, 40. Show you a little more detail here. So this is a supplier that submitted tickets under my rule, and there's 40 of them. And right away, I can see there's 36 of the 40 that were in compliance with my pricing. 5% of the lines had off-contract or non-compliant lines, and some had some overcharges. So I have $4,340 of overcharges on these tickets. And you notice the thing changes colors because I can actually sort, here's all my tickets below. But if I wanted to see the ones that had the overcharges, I just click on it, and it'll bring the 2 tickets up that were overcharged. At this point, I could dispute those if I don't agree with it. I could also set a rule to say I only allow these tickets with overcharges to be submitted. Just like the disposal ticket warning that I showed before, we could do the same thing on pricing. So I can clear that filter. I can do that sorting based on anything. So I want to see all my welding truck charges. it'll bring up all the tickets that had welding truck as a charge. So very quickly, I can look at these tickets in bulk and code them and approve them and workflow them. And these are, again, for the high volume, low dollar tickets to handle them very efficiently. And I believe that's everything I wanted to show, Dave, unless you had something else you wanted me to show.
No, that's fine, Don. I think we've covered it all, and we'll put it over to the audience for questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Don. Our first question here is, have you experienced suppliers who do not attach the actual ticket as support?
That would be part of the approvers. They could dispute those tickets back to the supplier and have them attach that ticket. Just like on an invoice today, our customers are requiring, paper tickets to back up that invoice. And if they don't, they reject them. The same thing with the disposal tickets. If they don't attach that disposal ticket as an attachment, then that would be a good reason to dispute those back to the supplier.
Okay. Now, to be clear, does the supplier create the ticket in OpenTicket?
Yes, the supplier does. Now, the supplier can do it in a number of different ways. They can submit it through their own external ticketing system or a third-party ticketing system, and we will connect with those systems. So we'll actually we'll be able to take a ticket from a third-party system and route it through OpenTicket, or they might have their own internal field ticketing systems, and we can take tickets from those systems as well. But the majority of suppliers are entering the tickets through our browser, as Don showed you. So basically, the supplier is responsible for generating the field ticket. Correct.
Does OpenTicket have a RESTful API available to integrate to the platform with other systems?
Yes, that is correct. We both have the REST API to do outbound, so getting tickets out of the system, as well as posting tickets to the system. So that's how third-party ticketing systems can post their tickets into the system, is with the REST API. And then on the other side, operators can pull the data off the tickets using an API.
Is there any specific hardware needed on the vendor or service provider side for this ticketing system?
The only thing that's required is an internet connection. So we support all devices, whether that's a cell phone, a pad, iPad or Android pad, or a computer. So there's no specific hardware. We support all browsers and all devices, as long as you have internet connection.
With different electronic field ticketing systems being used by service companies, can different field ticketing systems be fed into OpenTicket so that the operator doesn't have to sign into multiple systems to approve?
Yes, that is correct. And one of the nice things about being able to integrate with the third-party systems as well, and we've integrated with a number of them, is that not only does the operator not have to log on to the supplier system, but the supplier doesn't have to log on to a separate system for every operator. So the integration between the supplier's field ticketing solution and the operator's field ticketing solution means, frankly, the operator, they're in charge of their destiny. They only use one tool when it comes to managing field tickets, but the same thing is also true of the supplier.
Perfect. Now, if someone wanted to use OpenTicket, are they required to have Open Invoice already, or can OpenTicket run independently?
OpenTicket can run independently, and we actually have 2 operators right now that are actively implementing OpenTicket without using Open Invoice. They are using other invoicing systems, and once more leveraging our APIs, potentially those invoicing solutions could access digital field ticketing information from OpenTicket. So that is a possibility, but quite right. You don't have to have Open Invoice to have OpenTicket.
Can tickets be directed to a specific person or field office on the operator side for approval?
So I can take that. So the ticket stacks, we built the ticket stack concept to handle that. So rather than a ticket being owned by a person or a department, if you're thinking about how the invoice works, it's the data on the tickets which drives who actually goes in and can see the tickets and can approve them. So if they put a person's name on it, like I put Don Hofer as a requisitioner, it shows up in my Don Hofer requisition stack. If they set up like a rig as a requisitioner, that would go there. And that really helps with the routing of the tickets to the correct people that need to approve it on the operator side. It's all based on the data.
Okay, awesome. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to type them into the panel. I'll just take this moment to remind you guys that we will be sending out a replay of this recording tomorrow via email. And if you'd like to schedule a meeting or follow-up meeting to talk more about OpenTicket and what it might look like in your business environment, you can email us at businessdevelopment@enverus.com. That's ENVERUS.com. And I've actually put this email address into our chat box as well on the GoToWebinar panel. So if you want to see that, you can reach us there. Any further questions? Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. Have a great day.